nobody is doing what we're doing here.
For decades, Impro Theater has been creating completely improvised plays in the styles of the world's most famous playwrights, authors, and genres. We've taught hundreds of students their craft of narrative improvisation and have shared the stage with so many other talented performers. Now, we need your help to keep that stage alive and to discover what comes next.
It's like they're Cirque du Soleil or something.
You can't help yourself. You have to laugh.
I just remember I was just having a blast for an hour.
Improv isn't just about performance and storytelling. It's about engagement and connecting with each other, being a better listener, being a better partner, and building on the ideas of those around you.
The Impro journey started a friend of mine saying, hey, you're into improv. There's going to be a Twilight Zone improvised. Right after that was done, we said, hey, we got to sign up for this.
Impro Theater is committed to growing into a more diverse organization, to become a better version of ourselves, to be a place that creates community through art.
It's just getting started with regards to what it can be.
We want to expand our faculty and build a more inclusive school, and to reach out for new collaborations both here in the LA theater community and with artists around the world.
It's exciting to see that we're trying to be active in getting people from different walks of life.
With your tax-deductible donation, you will help support artists, writers, directors, storytellers, and more. We hope you'll help fund the future of this joyful, unique art form and support Impro Theater and its school and the next generation of narrative improvisers. Every relationship is a story, and we look forward to our story with you.
Impro Theater and the cast and crew of this online performance would like to take this time to honor the indigenous peoples of the ancestral and unceded homelands we each inhabit, and to consider the legacy of colonization and its far-reaching effects.
It's Friday night at Impro Jam. It's Friday night at Impro Jam. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is. Thank you, Ellen Cumming, for letting me steal your song. Ladies, gentlemen, non-binary friends, it's Friday night on Impro's Twitch channel, so it's time for the Impro Community Jam. I'm doing my Kermit the Frog. Woo! Yeah. So thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to all introduce ourselves. I'm Doc Faryl. Some know me as Doc, some know me as Faryl. My pronouns are she, her. And I'm a woman with long salt and pepper wavy hair in a black shirt with silver polka dots, long sleeve. And I'm sitting in front of a blue curtain. And just before I throw it to everybody in the whole cast, I want to introduce our special guest host this week because I'm so excited he's here. Friends, not only is this person my friend, he's also one of my improv mentors. He's a star at Comedy Sports, where he has represented at the World Championships for Los Angeles and Spokane. He's one of the stars of Impro's Sonder, which is awesome. You ought to go see it. One of the originators of Fantastic Tales, our improvised H.G. Wells we had a couple of years ago. And he's a good guy. I'm telling you, a good guy. So let me throw it first to our host this week. It's Rick Stedman.
Hi, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Hi, I'm Rick Stedman. I use he and him pronouns. I'm a white man with short brown hair, wearing a gray shirt, and standing in front of a bunch of books. Thank you so much. Do I throw it to someone now?
We're going to meet the rest of our cast now.
Let's do that.
Thank
Let's
you,
meet
Rick.
the rest of our cast. Yeah.
I had not cued you, Rick. Thank you.
Oh, hey, oh gosh, oh wow, okay, it's me. Hi, this is Carla Marty. I'm a she, her, and I am a Caucasian woman, and I have a dark pink shirt on. I have glasses on. My hair's up in a bun. I have bangs. It's kind of browny, and I have a kind of a dark gray black background.
Hi, I'm Ian Carroll, and I've prepared a representational haiku. Beach towel burrito. Seagulls fight over tater tots. Does it need pronouns?
Okay. You had me at haiku.
I'm Lori Olin. I'm Lori Allen Thomas. I think I know my own name. I'm a she, her. I have dark brown hair with gray streaks in the front. They are my own. I'm wearing a deep forest green short sleeve t-shirt, and I have a gray background, and I am here to have fun. Rock.
Hi there, I'm Norm. I'm a he, him, and I look exactly like Clint Eastwood.
Hi, everyone. I am Amy Kahn. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm Caucasian female with long brown hair that has henna covering the grays so that I can say that it's still natural hair color. And I'm in front of a fake brick background.
Hey, everyone. I am Matt Gaffney. He, him, his, like in he's a white guy with the repressed flock of seagulls hairdo. His virtual background is maybe it's quite dark with maybe a submarine sonar kind of electronic keyboard. And I'm very happy to be here tonight.
All right, that is everybody. Hey, let's get into a jam, y'all. So glad you could all join us tonight. Our theme, our overarching theme for tonight's jam is self-care, because it's been a complicated time. I don't know if you heard. And we all need to do things to look out for ourselves, to put on our own oxygen mask before we help the person next to us. So my thinking is suggestions based on that are going to give us all some ideas of new things that we can do to take care of ourselves. So with that in mind, our first game tonight is going to be a game called YouTube. We have 4 wonderful players who are going to play this game. We're going to get suggestions for them, and they are going to create YouTube channels. Each of them individually will have a different YouTube channel. And we're just going to be kind of channel flipping, which isn't a thing on YouTube, but it is a thing in this game, and we all know what it means. So that's what we're doing. We, for this game, wanted to get some suggestions. Jen, do you have some suggestions loaded up for us?
Sure. How about a long, slow walk around the neighborhood?
A long, slow walk around the neighborhood. I'm going to give that suggestion to Norm. That is your suggestion, a long, slow walk around the neighborhood. What else?
How about a full body massage?
A full body massage? Doc Faryl, that is your suggestion. Your YouTube channel will be based on a full body massage. What else do we have, Jen?
A cup of tea and a good book.
A cup of tea and a good book. I'm going to give that to Carla. Carla, your channel will be based on a cup of tea and a good book. And finally, what is Matt's suggestion going to be, Jen?
Bubblegum flavored toothpaste.
Bubblegum flavored toothpaste is your suggestion, Matt. All right, we're going to be seeing 4 YouTube channels based on those 4 suggestions, and we're going to be jumping between them. Players, this is the game of YouTube. Let's go. Have fun.
Hi. What's really important is that you really to get that body in your hair, you've got to really massage it. I mean, it's not enough just to get the deep conditioner. You got to push it through. If you're not getting into the follicle, if you're not sealing the follicle, then you're not getting the full body that your hair needs.
And your hair needs to have shine when you're walking around in a small town like mine, and you come across your neighbor. You say, "Hi, neighbor, look at that hair. Wow, you've been taking good care of yourself." That's what neighbors do. They butt into.
Hi, I'm Tommy the Tooth Thompson, and I don't want you just to use any old toothpaste. I want you to try my new super duper cherry bomb toothpaste. Why should you use a normal toothpaste with something that you do every single day when you can have Tommy Tooth Tompkins cherry blossom toothpaste?
Hi. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Sarah Jones here, of course. I'm just so busy these days. Drinking my tea and reading my books. And, it's so important to have these 2 things with you at all times, even when you're out in the middle of the world. You know what I mean? Just out your door. But that's like the middle of the world. And if you... Oh, I almost have to stop right now because I've been talking to you too long and I need to get back.
And sometimes you'll see somebody walking with their phone and they won't be paying attention. Well, that's the time when you step right in front of them and say, "Hey, neighbor, I like the style of your hair." And they'll look up in wide-eyed amazement because they didn't know anybody noticed. They were too busy talking or playing some stupid video game. Can you believe it? People just walk around playing Pokemon or whatever it is these youngsters do.
Okay, so you see what I mean? You got to really get down to the roots, okay? You got to get into the roots. Now, if that's not hard enough, get like a can or a bottle or something and just roll it because you got to really penetrate, okay? You know, if you're not getting through the keratin level, then what are you doing? You know, you got to get through the keratin level. Now, you know, sometimes I'll use my cell phone just so I can kind of radiate it in there,
We've changed
you know.
channels.
Hey, why are you sad?
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. I probably should get off the camera. Oh.
Oh, why are you sad though? I'm your book. I'm talking to you. You want to read a book?
I am
This
so
is the voice of your
sorry
book.
to see your sadness. Tommy the Tooth Thompson here with new flossing and brushing gloves. With these gloves, you are able to hold industrial strength floss and floss your entire mouth at one time. And also, these give you great grip for your Tommy the Tooth Thompson toothbrush and Tommy the Tooth Thompson's cherry blossom toothpaste balm.
But the most important thing on your walk is to be slow. Maybe take your dog along because your dog is going to want to sniff every single bush and piece of grass there is in town. And when they do that, you can stop and say, "Hi, neighbor. Gee, you have great hair today. My dog has great hair because I use the best dog shampoo on the market."
I'm sorry I haven't posted for like a month, but I read like 4 books and then I went outside and it was so frightening out in the world. You know, I just went out my door.
Oh, okay, so you can probably stay suspended from the hook for 10, 15 minutes, and that really yanks those roots, really yanks them, you know?
If someone asks me if I've brushed or not, I'll give them a polite, soft slap in the face with my large hand mitten.
Scene! Woo! The game of YouTube. I would subscribe to all of those. All right. That was a delightful game. We're going to move in from that into a game of a genre scene. Jen, our wonderful chat moderator, is going to get for us a suggestion of a film or theater style. And these players are going to perform a scene, maybe multiple scenes, we'll see, but a story in that style. So, Jen, did you land on a good one for us?
The audience is still mulling it over, although I think film noir is always a great genre.
All right. Well, why don't we do that one then? Film noir. It is always a great genre, and of course, one that you can see at Impro Theater. So, all the more reason. Do you have any extra self-care suggestions from the previous game?
Well, it is almost a genre as well because Pokemon Go is a suggestion.
Thank you. That's perfect. So for our players, this is going to be a film noir with the suggestion of Pokemon Go. Can those who are playing this game come onto screen so that I know that you're there? Great. 1, 2, 3. Great. Okay, awesome. I am going to leave it to you. You can enter and exit by turning your cameras on and off. Pokemon Go is your suggestion. And here we go, a film noir.
I was in the alley. I was looking all over for this ghost. It'd been eluding me for a long time. Betty came along to help me out.
Damn it, you're a good Seamus. You shouldn't be chasing after ghosts. You ought to be chasing real things like Pikachus.
Oh, Betty, I love it that you care so much. You know you're the only girl for me.
Ah, Seamus. Oh, what's that?
Stand back.
Squirtle! Squirtle! Squirtle!
Gizmo had been haunting me for years. I'd been on his trail, and every time I thought I was getting after him, it turned out he'd been following me.
Squirtle.
Betty, I'll see you later.
Honey, are you out there scaring people again?
Squirtle.
You know, given our family a bad reputation, and we already have, well, I guess you can't have a worse reputation than we have as it is, honey, because we are gamblers.
Squirtle! 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 Squirtle!
What? Jack! Oh, come back here. Look, I need you to go out tonight and, rob a few people and, take care of a few people and not just scare them. I mean, we have a contract to fulfill, and you need to go out and take care of people, if you know what I mean.
Squirtle!
Don't give me that look. Don't give me that look. Look.
Squirtle!
Squirtle had been giving me the runaround again. I plotted with Betty. She'd made me a nice dinner and poured me a tall glass of wine, and she looked all made up. Oh.
Well, gosh, Seamus, I didn't know that you'd notice. I just barely got done with my rouge and such. You're just so observant.
Betty was hot as
Seamus.
Betty was as hot as the fireworks on 4th of July. She was hotter than hot Mount Vesuvius when it exploded in 1622 and took out those people. Betty was tight with my heart, and she was going to give me a plan to catch Scroodle.
I have a special Squirtle catching cloth. You see, you throw this over his head, and he can't escape from that. And then you'll be the training master, I want to say.
I owed Betty my life, but I wasn't going to tell her. I was trying to play hard to get.
Squirtle. Squirtle.
And scene. Oh, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, you just witnessed Detective Pikachu directed by David Lynch. That was amazing. All right. I'd love all the players on the screen now because you are all going to play a game together. This is the game of 4 rooms. We are going to have 4 separate scenes. We're going to start with one of those scenes. At a certain point, I will call switch, and we will go to the next scene. However, it will begin with whatever the last line said in the previous scene was. And it will continue like that. We will return to that first scene, but it'll be using the last line of the 4th scene. And if this isn't making sense, I could draw you a picture, but honestly, you'll get it the moment that you see it. So these are going to be our 4 scenes. The first is going to be Lori and Carla. The second will be Matt and Amy. The third will be Norm and Ian. And the fourth, in a room of her own, will be Doc Faryl.
Just like Virginia Woolf.
Just like Virginia Woolf. Hopefully it's a room with a view. All right. So we're going to get some suggestions for these 4 scenes. And I believe Jen has already asked for them. So Jen, what's the first suggestion?
The park.
The park. I love it. Okay, so Lori and Carla's suggestion will be the park. What's after that?
Lake Tahoe.
Lake Tahoe. Matt and Amy, your suggestion is Lake Tahoe. What's our next suggestion?
A good restaurant.
A good restaurant. Norm and Ian, your suggestion is a good restaurant. And what's our final one?
The bar.
The bar. Doc Farrell's suggestion is the bar. All right, they can use these suggestions however they want. And we are going to begin in our first scene, Lori and Carla with, I believe it was, the park. All right, here we go. Take it away.
I tell you, Trina, they got to fix the teeter-totters. The kids can't play on the teeter-totters.
Yeah, my kids come home like with 14 scratches today. I only have like 12 band-aids left. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, what? What is that?
What?
What? We pay all this money and we get nothing. Our children,
Tommy, come here.
Switch, come here.
Come here, Sylvia. I want you to come to the lake with me today.
Oh, whatever you say, Johnny. I'd go anywhere with you. You know it.
I want you to bring your charm, the half heart that I gave you last week from our 2-month anniversary.
Johnny, you know I don't go anywhere without your heart.
Listen, I've got something important I want to ask you when we get to the lake.
Of course. Oh, goodness.
All right, listen, I can't wait. I can't wait for the lake.
Switch. Of course, oh goodness.
Of course. Oh goodness, this food is so great. Romulus, this is such good food.
I'm going to die eating this food. It's so good.
Romulus, it's like our first meal that we had together. Do you remember that meal?
I remember like it was yesterday.
Switch. I remember like it was yesterday.
I remember like it was yesterday when Citizens United v. Holder was brought before the Supreme Court. And ladies and gentlemen, as I approach the bar, and our non-binary friends, as I approach the bar to make my argument, let me remind you this, that in our country, that the vote must represent the vote, not money. For people are people and corporations are corporations. And therefore, as stated in Brown versus Board of Education, we cannot have separate but equal. We are only equal.
Switch.
So that is the way.
We are only equal.
We are only equal in this, you and me.
Yeah.
I got some paper. We're going to sign a petition. Come on, Trina.
You know, Jessica, I'm with you, man. You know what? Why don't we just take it further than the paper? Why don't we hit them upside the head with the paper when we're done? Like, let's make it
like I could roll this paper up. Tommy, get off. I said, get off of the teeter-totter.
Get off. I said, get off.
Get off. I said get off. You know I'm not that kind of girl.
Don't play hard to get with me. You've been sending missed messages and you know it.
I thought we had something special.
Switch. I thought we had something special.
I thought we had something special.
I know. We did, Romulus. And that's why I've poisoned you tonight.
Switch. And that's why I've poisoned you tonight.
And that's why I poisoned you tonight. Poisoned you with democracy. Poisoned you with justice. Poisoned you with freedom for all and equality and diversity and inclusion and access. For these poisons will surely get rid of inequality in our democracy and bring us to the joy of equality for all. Yeah, I think I'm hitting all the points here.
Switch. I think I'm hitting all the points here.
I think we're hitting all the points. Yeah, I think we got it. Tommy, what? Your boy's beating up on my kid. Your
Well, you
boy's
know,
beating
boys.
up on my kid.
Hey, look. Hey, Jessica. Boys will be boys. You know what?
Which boys will be boys.
Boys are gonna be boys, Sylvia. Come on. You're an attractive lady. I've got to have you.
I don't think you're that loyal to me. I think you were seeing two other women just before you came here.
They didn't mean anything.
Switch. I think you were seeing 2 other women just before you came here.
I think you were seeing 2 other women just before you came here. So, Romulus, enjoy the cups of many wines, for now we can be as one.
Switch. For now we can be as one.
For now we can be as one, for e pluribus unum, out of many comes one. And therefore,
Scene! Oh, players. That was the game of 4 rooms. Yeah, come on, screen. Yeah, give yourselves a little credit. That was delightful. Just for those watching at home, Matt's character does not reflect Matt's views. He's a bad character, good person. Okay. Our next game up is the game of Dub Switch. We have 4 players for this game. Let's see. For the 4 players who are playing Dub Switch, please come onto the screen so that I know who is playing. We're going to see a 2-player scene. 2 of the players will be on screen, and 2 of the players will be providing their voices. Please, if you're in this game of Dub Switch,
I'm
come
the
on.
only one in this game.
I know that we planned ahead. I know that you're not the only one.
I thought we did.
I'm joining.
Thank you. We're missing 2 players here, folks.
You need just someone? I'll
Well,
come on.
It was let's see. It's somebody who I honestly I can't track who it was.
Let's get 2 more players. First 2 up.
Let's get the 2 people who. Okay, there we go. Great, we've got Ian. Thank you.
We're not in YouTube.
Yeah, who were not in YouTube. Yeah, okay,
I wasn't in
Amy.
YouTube.
I was in
Good.
YouTube.
Okay, then you were supposed to be in this game. Great. Okay, so the way that this game is going to work, now that we have the requisite number of people for it, 2 of these players will be on screen. 2 of the other 2 players will be providing the voices for those characters on screen. When I say switch, the players on screen will go off screen. The players off screen will come on screen. The players who are now off screen will provide the voices for those now on screen. Again, I could draw a picture, but the moment that you see it, it will make sense. I just explained it really confusingly. So our pairs we'll start with, let's see, we will start with Ian and Amy on screen. And Laurie, you will provide Ian's voice. And Matt, you will provide Amy's voice. Okay, and when you switch, you're staying the same character, but the other person is now, your other person is providing your voice. Boy, I hope that this goes as smoothly as the setup did.
Me too.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Our wonderful chat moderator, Jen, has a suggestion for us, I believe. Do you, Jen?
Yes, the
Yeah?
Grand Canyon.
Oh, that's so good. The Grand Canyon. All right. So this is a scene based off of the suggestion of Grand Canyon. We are beginning with Ian and Amy on screen. Laurie and Ian are paired as a voice and a character. Matt and Amy are paired as a voice and a character. All right. Here we go. Grand Canyon. Begin.
Cletus, I want more adventure in our relationship.
Hello, 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 hello.
I know
Hello, 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 hello.
you've brought me two. But I want more.
Wow, this echo thing is super fun. Did you see me just echo?
Well, now you're looking all cute. You know how I get when you get me laughing. Come on over here.
All right, I'll come over there. Well, we're just seeing just such beauteous things out there. I'm just so happy we're here.
Switch.
Of course you're happy we're here. This is one of the wonders of the world.
I know. And so, I'm going to tell you how much I care about you. You see, I have a secret.
You have a secret? I hope that you trust me enough to share it with me.
Cletus, I have known you for 13 years, and we've had a lot of fun, haven't we?
Oh, at least 7 of those 13 years have been fun.
Yeah, all 7 of the 13 years.
Switch.
But the other 6 were so troubling.
Well, I'm just at a lost here. I thought we were having a great look. I got to tell you my secret. My secret is I
Switch.
Love ham sandwiches. This entire time, you thought I was allergic, but I'm not.
Camera's on, Ian.
Yeah, funny, isn't it?
Switch.
Listen, and listen good. I've got to tell you, I'm ending it all.
what? Oh, that's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Switch.
We're here to end it all and to celebrate.
Yes. I'm glad you understand that it's just a life change and not the failure of a 13-year relationship. No, we can build better selves and improve and find our inner strength and energy.
Yes, I agree.
The game of Dub Switch. The smooth as silk game of Dub Switch.
Oh, yeah.
That was fantastic. The game honestly doesn't really work if it goes perfectly smoothly. So these players nailed it. All right, thank you so much, players. All right, our next game is a game called Jonathan's Alliteration Game. This is a game named for its, I think, inventor, Jonathan Mangum. He's a great improviser and a good guy. But the way that this game works is the players in this game are each going to be getting a letter or a sound. I forgot to ask our chat moderator to ask for these. So we need some consonants or pairs of consonants like CH, but sounds. So we need 3 of those. And my apologies, Jen, for not covering that we would need these. Might have been putting things on the spot too much for our audience. Should I just choose these?
We have a couple of suggestions.
Great. What do we have?
TH sound.
TH, great. Lori, you'll get TH.
Fabulous.
And
What?
burr.
Burr, I'm going to take that as a BR. BR. Ian, you will get BR.
Brat's great.
And do we have a final one for Amy?
How about Z, like with the letter Z?
Perfect. Z, the letter Z. All right. Thank you so much, Jen. So the way that Jonathan's alliteration game works is each of these players will be speaking only in words that begin with those letters or sounds. But they won't be doing true alliteration. If the suggestion, for instance, was a G, they would speak like this. Gello, gaugargu. It's incredibly stupid and also incredibly hard. It's both of those things. It's like a lot of great improv. So that is going to be, those are the suggestions. I believe we had TH, BR, and Z. And Jen, do we have a suggestion for the game itself? For the scene?
How about the Great Wall of China?
The Great Wall of China. I love it. The Great Wall of China. All right. So feel free to enter and exit this scene however you want. Great Wall of China is your suggestion. Begin.
Darling, be careful. Then don't drop so baby.
Brarling, Brutter, Brar, Brew, Brocking, Brout. Bris, Briz, Brar, Braby.
Yes! This is our baby! Then you're standing too close to see
Brian,
us.
Branding, Brew, Broche to the brew.
I am the keeper of the Great Wall of China.
Please! So Zebra! The Sino!
I see the baby have fallen off of the Great Wall of
Help us!
Break, baby!
I then have help you?
Brat.
I can't help him.
That was Jonathan's alliteration game. Folks at home, I hope you didn't walk away from the screens, because if you did, you missed gold. Oh, that was amazing. Well played. Well played. Delightful. Oh my goodness. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. Our next game is the classic theater sports game of changing styles. So for this game, we're going to need a number of movie and theater styles. We probably still have some from earlier when we asked, but we'll need more if we didn't. Yeah. And let's go ahead and get those. Jen, do you have some suggestions for us?
Yes, we have science fiction,
Great. Science fiction.
teen movie,
Teen movie. I love it. Okay.
Screwball comedy.
Screwball comedy. Awesome.
MGM musical.
MGM musical. Yeah. Okay.
And Quentin Tarantino.
Quentin Tarantino. I'm gonna ask the players to aim for one of Quentin's more PG to PG-13 scenes. I know how easy that is, but and I'm going to throw in a couple myself. I'm going to throw in a couple of suggestions. I'm going to throw in Western because that's a classic, and I am also going to throw in. I'm going to throw in Shakespeare because it's also literally a classic, and several of these are styles that you can watch at Impro Theater, so that's exciting as well. So the way that this game will work is our lovely players here, Amy, Lori, and Norm, will begin a scene. Might be two of them, might be one of them, whatever. They will begin a scene without any particular style. And then as the scene progresses, I will call out styles, and that scene, that story will it'll shift into that style. So it'll still be the same scene, same characters, but it will now be in one of these styles. Oh man, some of these styles are really amazing. So thank you, folks at home. All right. So, do we have a larger suggestion, Jen, of just a scene suggestion for them?
Antarctica.
Antarctica. Wonderful. Antarctica. All right. So this game will begin with no styles in particular. And here we go. Antarctica. Begin.
Mom, I'm not going to eat the seal. I'm a vegetarian, remember?
But if we don't eat, we'll starve and freeze. Not necessarily in that order.
But don't you see? We're killing off the animals.
I understand that you're very concerned with animal welfare, and I understand that. But we're in another culture at this time, and the greenery is a little sparse around here, if you haven't noticed.
I told you I didn't want to move here. Why did you make me move here?
Screwball comedy. Screwball comedy.
Martha, the contest that I won didn't specify where the house was. I'm so sorry.
We don't have to eat seals. We can throw snowballs.
Snowball fight!
Science fiction.
What's that coming out of the ground? Oh no!
There's motion coming from under the glacier.
It's some kind of thing. I don't know what it is, but it's a thing.
I'm scared. I'm really scared.
Western. Western.
Now see here, this tundra ain't big enough for the three of us.
Look, Black Betty, I don't want no trouble.
Oh, come on, you guys. I don't want... Darn it. What? Can't we just plant some seeds or something, find some green? I mean, it is global warming. I'm sure there's some green around here somewhere.
Teen movie. Teen movie.
Listen.
Gosh, Black Betty, I sure like you.
Oh my God. You are just too uncool for me. I don't want to drop my popularity factor.
Okay, guys, like, you know, it's my birthday and nobody...
MGM musical. MGM musical.
It's a cool day on the Arctic. Come and join us in the sun.
And dig your snowman in the snow. It's the greatest in the show.
In the snow.
In the snow.
In the snow.
Shakespeare.
Aye. The sun doth set and leave a cold pestilence upon our household, I fear.
All I can do is just roll up the snow upon my hand into a white ball that resembles some sort of cold and dithering and slow whiteness of my heart that is so lonely.
The
to eat seal. To eat seal or not to eat seal? That is the question.
Quentin Tarantino.
What do you think they call cooked seal in Paris?
They call it a royale.
Seal Royale?
Seal Royale.
You sure
That's
about
what they call
that?
it.
I don't care what you guys say. That's all I'm going to say.
And scene. The game of changing styles. Well done, players. Yeah, you really got put through your paces. Really, really nice work. That was a lot to handle. You know, we all learned if you're a vegetarian, you shouldn't have to eat seals. You know? I mean, it's 2021, you guys. All right. That was the game of changing styles. We have one last game for you, and it is a doozy. Let's get all the players up onto the screen for the game of survival of the fittest. Here they come, here they come. All right, so survival of the fittest is a problem-solving game. We are going to get different problems that need solving. And every time a player is highlighted onto the screen, they will have to say a new solution to that problem. If they say a solution that doesn't make any sense to me, if they say something that's already been said, if they stall and can't come up with anything, any of those reasons, I will eliminate them. We will start a new round with a new problem. The final player standing will win the game and bragging rights that they can just lord over people, you know.
They win the gold.
Yeah. Yeah. Thematic. Very nice. I like that. Yeah. That's still happening. Yeah. Okay. So let's get from our wonderful chat moderator, Jen, a problem that these players will be finding solutions to.
The sound of silence.
How about how to remove a dead possum?
Wow, how to remove a dead possum. All right, so we're just gonna get a bunch of different solutions to removal of a dead possum. Chris Dion, our wonderful tech, is going to be switching through the players and putting them on the spot. So, first problem is a dead possum. Here we go.
Throw it in a plastic bag.
And use a shovel.
Wood chipper.
Dynamite.
Don't feed your cats in the morning and let them at it.
Well, if you're a possum and you're blind, you got to go by your sense of smell. So you got to make sure you got clear sinuses.
I'm sorry, Matt. That doesn't solve the problem of removing the possum. It does solve the possum's problem, though. It's a totally different one. I appreciate that solution, but Matt is going to join me in watching the game now. Let's get a new problem that needs solving. Jen?
Well, when I first read the thing about the possum, I thought it said person. So there's also the suggestion best way to remove a dead person.
Okay. Great. I'm gonna open it up. I'm gonna say best way to remove a person. Remove a person, and yeah, just watch yourselves here, players. Don't step in anything too bad. All right, here we go. Remove a person.
A bathtub full of sulfuric acid.
Wood chipper.
A large suitcase.
Put the person in a plastic bag.
There's a great big robot arm to gently lift them up and gently place them someplace else.
Let Mrs. Lovett open a meat pie shop right next to you.
One-way ticket to Salt Lake City.
Just denial. Lots of denial. Just, it isn't there. We can all agree on that.
A mini tractor.
A bunch of balloons like in the movie Up.
The sheriff's department eviction squad.
Vote them out of office, even if they don't believe it.
Yes.
Infect them with a zombie virus and let them just walk out themselves.
A dog sled with dogs. Just put them on there. Pew! Out you go.
Use a whole lot of 95% ethanol and then just light the problem and have the smoke drift them away.
Old trusty dynamite.
You get a big old cannon, you shove them down the tube, light that sucker up, and boom, they're gone.
Put them on the curbside and let the sweep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Take them away.
She couldn't get the words out, so I'm eliminating Lori, mostly because it turns out there are infinite ways to remove a person. Well done, players. All right, I'm going to give you your next problem, and it's the problem of our time. Climate change. Solve climate change.
Move to Antarctica and let the seals bring the cold weather with them.
Have $1 billion and move yourself to Mars.
Drop a lot of ice cubes onto the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, similar. A large refrigerator covering the Earth.
A giant fan cooling everything.
A big awning over Canada.
We could plant some trees. Anyone plant some
Oh,
trees?
no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, darn.
No.
Too practical.
Too practical, too helpful. Ian is eliminated. Sorry, Ian. Good work, everybody else. Okay. Jen, do we have any more problems in the chat?
Yes, we do. There's a problem of how to get revenge on a neighbor.
Oh my goodness. All right. How to get revenge on a neighbor. We went kind of dark in the remove a person, so I'm going to challenge the players not to go too dark in their revenge. Here we go. Revenge on a neighbor.
Syrup the top of their house for ants, so they come.
Put 100 pink flamingos in their yard and change them up in different formations.
Sell your house to Rand Paul.
Solve two problems at once. You throw your possum that you don't want into his backyard.
Put their house listed as an Airbnb.
Take all your poop scoops and scoop their poop onto their poopy scoop.
Get about 50 cats and let them roam their yard.
Oh, I'm sorry. That would be delightful, is what that would be. Rather than revenge, you've got a cat party. Sorry, Carla, we gotta eliminate you on that one because that just sounds real fun. Do we have any more problems in the chat, Jen?
Yes, we do. The problem of how do you fix a computer that's not working?
Ooh, all right. Fix a computer that is not working.
Reboot it.
Have you tried turning it off and then turning it on again?
Oh, I'm sorry, Norm. That is rebooting. That's a lovely synonym. So Norm is going to join us in the audience. Well done. And we need one last problem for our final two players.
Yes, how can you brush your dog's teeth?
Wow. Gotta brush your dog's teeth. Solve that one, players. Here we go.
Tell them a really funny joke so that they smile hard, and then get in there with the brush while they're smiling.
Wrap the toothbrush in cheese.
Brush their teeth with a cat.
Get them on Tinder and get them a date so that they're motivated to have nice, clean teeth.
Yeah.
Just have them peel away the bark.
Fingers.
Pull them up to the nearest intersection and let the squeegee guys take care of it. And tip them well.
A loofah sponge that's just like really soaked up with Crest.
Just leave your favorite pair of shoes out and they will chew away the tartar on your shoes.
Ground glass, but that's not really advisable.
No, I'm sorry, it is not. It would be terrible for that pup. So we gotta eliminate Doc Faryl on that one. And our winner of Survival of the Fittest is Amy Kahn. Yeah, this is where if I had it, I would play like a theme song, but I don't. So we're just
I promised myself I wouldn't cry.
Excellent. Oh, I guess we had applause playing too. That's perfect. All right, that's our Impro Jam for tonight. Please, at home, give it up for your players. Please, players, give it up for our audience at home. I would like to send a special thank you to Leslie Dawn. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Evidently, you did the heavy lifting on suggestions tonight, and we would like to thank you. It made all the difference in the world for us. Thank you so much, Impro Theater, and thank you. Let's say goodbye to our cast.
Goodbye, cast.
Say your name as you come up. Say your name, Amy.
Hi, Amy Kahn from Rhode Island.
Yay.
Lori Allen Thomas. So long.
Mick Gaffney, Redlands, California.
Doc Faryl, Solomon Reingold. And by the way, while I have the screen, I want to thank our moderator, who is Jennifer Epps, and I want to thank our tech improviser, who is Christy On. Now you may proceed.
I'm Cook from Long Beach, California.
Hey, that's Ian Carroll. He's from Los Angeles.
Hey, I'm Carter Barney from Orange County. Woo!
And I've been your host for tonight, Rick Stedman. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, players, for being delightful. Also, if you haven't listened to Sonder the Improvised podcast, please do. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you again, Chris Dillon. Thanks, Jen Epps. You guys were awesome.
Thank you, Rick Stedman. Be with us next week when our host will be Scarlet Moon Bell. Yes.